Well, hello everybody and welcome to yet another OpenShift Commons briefing. This one is a slightly different twist. We're going to talk about UX design and designing with users for users, and a little bit of background from some of the folks at Red Hat that are working on that to share with the community and to ask for your feedback as well. So I'm going to let Sara Chizari and Carl Pearson introduce themselves and their topic. You can ask questions in the chat, but we'll have live Q&A at the end too. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat and maybe save them up to the end. So take it away, guys.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Good morning to those who are in the West Coast, and good afternoon and good evening to everyone else. Sara Chizari. I'm a UX researcher, as Diane said. I'm working with the UXD team. I'm one of I think we have 113 other people on the team. The UX research team is a sub-team of the UXD. In the UX research, we have, I think, 5 or 6 UX researchers at the moment. Carl is one of them, and I will let him introduce himself.
Yeah, as Sara said, my name is Carl. I am another UX researcher on the team, and I work quite a bit on OpenShift, specifically in the admin console, and doing a lot of research and interviews with actual end users. So talking with people about what is working well for them, what isn't, and what they want to see in the product.
Cool. So yeah, as Carl said, what we do is basically we just mainly are focused on users. We work with users to understand what they want, what are the expectations, what are their needs, and hopefully translate those information we gather from them into some product features. So making sure that the product that we design is actually working for them. So we do a lot of conversations and a lot of communication with users and customers. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the journey that we take to bring on users in our process of design and development. So here's the outline. We're going to tell you a bit about ourselves and the team, who we are. We're going to talk about design thinking, which is the framework that we use overall. It's just it's a framework that we follow just to bring is a framework to bring on users to the process of design and development. We'll tell you what that is. We'll talk about the building blocks of design thinking. And what we're going to do is that we're going to share some of the research examples that we have recently done and the studies that we have worked with the users to get their feedback from different perspectives and through different activities and studies. So, and at the end, we will have a brief discussion about how you guys can get involved in this process, and let's get started. So who we are, the team we have is a group of different roles. We have UX researchers such as me and Carl. We have UX designers. The majority of our teams are UX designers. These are the people who are trained to design for users and having users in mind. We have UX managers and we have product managers. What we do is there's a lot of interaction between us, and we also have UX developers. That's the other role I didn't include here. But what we do is just to work together. We use research as the backbone of everything that we do. We try to start with users. We try to understand things from their perspective and translate those ideas to the designers and development team, and hopefully design something that works for everyone, for our end users. So why design thinking? I mean, this session is going to be about design thinking, but maybe we are going to talk about why we need to include design thinking in our process. So design thinking is basically a framework for including users in the process of design and development, and I will give you the standard definition of it in the next slide. But why we need to do this? I think the simple answer to that is that designers that we have, like every designers, they're not used. So we have rule of thumbs. We know how to design. Like designers, they are trained to design. But at the end of the day, they are not users, because users are coming from a variety of backgrounds, of languages, of countries, experiences with different products. So each user is different than the other person or the other user. So because of this diversity between the users, we will definitely need to work with users to make sure what we design is working for them. So designers are not users, and that's actually obvious. So that's why we need to include them. The other reason is that, again, we know that one size won't fit everyone. So we definitely need to include everyone in the process of design, every user in the process of design, to make sure what we're designing is working for them. Otherwise, designing one standard application and hoping that that will work for everyone, that's not going to work. And we know that's not going to work. Everything is done from their perspective. So here is the actual definition of design thinking. If you look at the internet, like if you look up design thinking on the web, you will find thousands of definitions of this framework. There are so many different ways of defining this framework. There are multiple framework, like design thinking itself is a term, is an umbrella term, but there are different ways of describing that. One of the famous one is coming from IDEO, is the company that does design thinking as their core processes. Design thinking to them seems like to be working with users to understand their problems. Is basically the problem solving method, so that we could include the user's needs and requirements in the process. And at the end of the day, we're looking to create innovative and very neat ideas that actually works for the users. So in general, that includes all the needs from the users, like the demands and the requirements they have, and translating those ideas and those needs into something innovative and creative. IDEO is one of them, but we have other design thinking like frameworks coming from Stanford Design School is one of them. The other, I think, design thinking framework is coming from IBM as well. They call it Loop. But again, if you look it up on the internet, you will find very different definitions of this. But I think this one that I have here is the most comprehensive on, and actually tells you what exactly is design thinking. What are the prices of not focusing on users? And again, these are the reasons that we do want to have users included in the process of our design. We don't want to design features that don't work for users and it won't solve the problems for the users. We don't want to design things that are not user friendly. We don't want to users. So we don't want any of this happen, and that's the reason we want to include the users in the processes. So I have some really fun real-life examples of not including users in the process of design. This one is really extreme, but I thought because it's really fun, I should show it to you. So let's see if it works. So this is a playground, and we have slides for kids to play with. But as you see, none of those kids are using those slides, and they have found a very fun other way to play. So again, this is very extreme, but again, very interesting way of showing what happens when you don't include users in your process of design. Really, because again, we might have some ideas that we think is going to work for the users, but until we work with the users and talk to them, we won't be work. The other very classic examples of design thinking and not including design like users in the process of design is this Norman door. Most of you have heard of it. The picture you see on the left. This is called Norman door because Don Norman is the person who actually introduced this concept to the world of user experience. As you see, it says push on the door, but because it has handles, people expectation is that they can pull. So that's a classic example of not thinking about users' mental models and not thinking about the users' cognitive behavior when it comes to designing stuff for them. And the right example that you see on the slide is a feeder for cats. The top example it seems to be just working. It just like is a feeder that it can have plates for cats. In reality, that's what happened in the picture. In under that, you see they're not actually gonna eat what they see like in an order and like next to each other and one by one. So again, is a very cute example of not including the users in the design. I'm going to talk about a few steps that we take in design thinking and in our processes mainly. The steps, again, these are design thinking steps. The first step is to do empathy, to have empathy with users. In this step, we are trying to understand our users. Who are these people? Who are the target users of our product? What are their needs? What are their requirements? And what are the problems really? So it's very sort of like foundational studies or research or activities that we do to understand what are the needs of our target users. And we call it empathy because basically we are trying to understand them, understand everything from or those problems or needs into some features that we can design on. So in the next step, we call it ideate, which is basically where we take all those ideas that we gathered from the empathy sessions or all those requirements and needs from the users and try to create several different ideas on how to solve those problems. Like there are a lot of brainstorming sessions, a lot of collaborative sessions in this phase that we try to come up with several different ideas, sometimes hundreds of ideas, and try to understand which one might work for the users. And this is basically where we include users in this process. We work with them. We go through different variations or iterations to make sure those designs are working for them. So experimentation is the next step, basically. So we take those ideas, we work with users, we create prototypes, mock-ups, and things like that. Again, we go back to see what they think. And again, the end product of this process is basically some ideas, and those ideas, again, need to be tested and iterated on. So this is basically is a loop. It's never ending sort of process where we start with users, understand their problems and need, ideate on that, test those ideas, and again we go back to the users just to make sure those things that we designed is working for them, and it's a constant loop. We're not gonna ever stop this process. So what I'm gonna do now is just give you some examples of the things that we do at the UXD team. Some of the examples of those steps that I mentioned in previous slides. One of them, which is one of my most favorite one, is this string board. SJ is one of the designers and one of the researchers on the team who created this activity to create personas. So persona is where we try to identify and who they are, what are their characteristics, what they like and what they don't, and stuff like that. So as you see on the board, there are categories for developers, basically. So who are these developers? What are their level? What they're specialized on? What they work in? What are the industry they're coming from? What they want to learn? So a lot of characteristics of the developers. So this is one way of understanding who our users are. Like who are these people exactly? What are the characteristics? What they want to learn? Where they're working from? Who are these people exactly? So I like this activity. We did this activity at the summit, at the Red Hat Summit, and recently at the DevConf in Boston. So yeah, this was an activity we did at the summit where we wanted to understand what are our users' experiences with our products, like what they think about it, what they feel about it, what are the pain points, and what are the things that they wish for the products. The activity that you see on the left. So you see there are 4 sections on the board, and that's what we did at the summit. It was basically a very interactive session, very a lot of system admins about the experience with Rail, specifically in this context. The other activity we did at the summit, and we are actually doing it in other avenues as well, is the empathy card that you see on the right side of the picture, which is basically is a very simple activity, which is what we are using to understand what is the biggest pain point for our customers or our users. So we want them to tell us what product they use, and if they want to change one thing about that product, what would that be? And what we are trying to understand mainly in the UX research world is the answer to why. So if something is wrong, we want to know why that is wrong. So that's the main focus of most of the activities that we do. This is another activity that Carl did. So I'm just going to have him talk about his research.
Yeah, so this is another kind of really high-level piece of research that is kind of a step back from the product itself, but is really important. So this is a technique called mental model interviews, where essentially you start with a series of interviews and you comb through all of the interviews to find the tasks that people are doing every day, and you group them all together. And this is a pretty long process, sifting through all this interview data and then, grouping things one by one with each other with something else. But you get this really big picture of the landscape of what people are doing in their day-to-day. And this was built specifically around the SRE role, or Site Reliability Engineer. And we did this because this is somewhat of a newer role and is starting to gain a lot of traction and could be one of the main roles that might end up using OpenShift. So we wanted to be sure that we were designing for the right problem, essentially. We realized that we didn't necessarily have the best picture of what they did day to day, and before we started just jumping into design, we wanted to be sure that we were going to be designing the right thing before we designed something right, because maybe it wasn't what they needed. So this is really recent research, and it's still sort of being read out and being used, but we learned a lot about the context of their use and kind of some of the bigger overarching strategies involved with being an SRE and working with OpenShift. So there's obviously a lot of data here to work with, but this kind of research can be very evergreen, and you can draw from it for many years and reference it when you want to be sure that you're designing the right thing.
Yeah, the activity that Carl explained is a type of activity, we call it generative research, which is basically what we are trying to use to generate many more ideas from it. So it's a very foundational research. You learn so much from the users that you can't, there's not gonna be only one avenue you're gonna use that. There's gonna be several different avenues you're gonna use this research. Which is quite amazing. It's very time consuming, as Carl said, but for sure it's going to work much about the real experience of the users about the products. So as I said, the next step in our processes is ideation or ideating on several ideas. So a lot of things that we learned in the empathy sessions will lead into this step. So basically, this one is a very interesting example that one of our designers actually did, called Dash. It's called the activity is called a speedboat activity, which is basically is activity to understand what are the challenges and problems of our users along the way. So a speedboat is basically a metaphor where basically the idea is to start from one point and you want to basically get to another point, but we want to think it in your context of your product. Basically, you want to get started with logging in and then do something along the way and finish. So it's a journey that you want to take on, and the speedboat is basically with your product. But most probably there are a lot of obstacles or a lot of problems along the way that you're facing in order to achieve your goal. So we're using this metaphor basically for people to think of the challenges they may face during the process of finishing something using a product or an application. We are identifying problems, challenges, also opportunities, like how we can make this boat go faster, what are the opportunities there to improve the process from our users, a lot of discussions about challenges and opportunities. Again, very interesting activity that Dash did a few months ago. Another activity we did at the summit is actually coming from the OpenShift team. Colleen and Chris did this activity. Is a card sorting activity, which is basically using Legos in their goal was to understand what are the main resources within OpenShift console that people care most about, and how would they actually organize those resources together, which like I guess the result of this activity was to understand what should be the IA of the information architecture of OpenShift. So a very fun activity, hands-on, and it was done at not this summit, but the past summit in San Francisco. Another sort of activities that we do for experimentation and iteration, which is basically the last step in our design thinking, where we basically are testing our ideas and prototypes. So after the first two steps, we most probably came up with some sort of design or a mock-up that we want to understand. So now that we have this sort of a solution, is that working from a user perspective? So write is one of the methods that we try. It's called rapid iterative testing and evaluation, which is basically very iterative and very rapid. It's where you design something like one mock-up, as you see on the left side of the picture, and then you test it with one user or one customer. Based on whatever feedback that one person gave you, you come up with another design. You test that next design with another participant for another users, and then use those feedback to use it for the next iteration. So it's very iterative, and sometimes it takes, like, say, 10 to 12 or even 20 iterations to come up with something that we can be kind of confident that's going to work for most of the users. So this activity was done at DevConf, not this year, again in 2018, by Tiffany and Gina. Very, very iterative and hands-on activity, very interesting and very engaging as well. This was for the development, for the developers' website, and they got really good feedback. The study is called reaction study, but again, if you have heard of reaction studies, usually done with choosing a list of words from a list that is given to the users. But what we did here was to use Lego pieces instead of those words, and we made it kind of hands-on. So basically the idea was just to get feedback on a mock-up that we had. So the mock-up, I don't know if you can see it, but in the back of this picture, there's a mock-up that we had for OpenShift console, and we just wanted to see what's people's reaction to the visual design of the application. So, and this is what we did. We just took the mock-up, like printed it on a board, we showed them to the users and customers, and we asked for their reaction using the list of words that we gave them, and that's what they did. It was a very engaging and, again, interesting activity. So these are the examples that we had. Like, it was only a few examples. We have done so many more. The highlights of them. We just wanted to show some of them to you to see what we really do at UXD team and how we work with the users to do design thinking or gather feedback from them. What I'm going to talk about now is that if any of these things that I mentioned today is sounding interesting to you, or you're excited about it, there's opportunity for you guys to get involved. We have a design thinking workshop happening at the OpenShift Commons, happening on October 28th in San Francisco. So if you guys are looking for an engaging, exciting, and hands-on activity during the OpenShift Commons, please make sure you sign up for this workshop. The major theme of the activity or the workshop is going to be around troubleshooting in OpenShift, and we're going to go through multiple hands-on activities for inspiration, ideation, and iteration. And you guys will have an experience of what it means to do design thinking, and most probably you will learn a lot about some of those activities that you can apply to your own workspace and workflow that you have. So if you guys are interested, make sure you sign up for this workshop. We have a link here for you guys to sign up. I can share the link in the chat as well if you guys want. I think that would be even easier. But I'm gonna pause at this part just to make sure we are fine. And if you guys have any questions about anything that I talked about, sorry if I talk too fast. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Carl is here, and there are a few other people from the UXD team on the call. So we're happy to take any questions if you have.
Well, we had one question, and there's been a little bit of chat going on in the chat section. And Peter was asking, in terms of, I'm thinking he's talking about OpenShift, if whether or not we've implemented any kind of metrics within the apps to measure user responses to a specific design. So I know people do A/B testing and all kinds of fun stuff like that, but is there anything the UX folks are getting back? And Carl had started to answer that.
Yeah, I can continue that.
Carl, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've actually just been learning about this. I'm at a face-to-face meetup with the OpenShift design team right now, so been talking a lot about this kind of stuff. There's some stuff we have implemented that looks more at configurations and builds and upgrades to help with our Insights product, and that is less related to actual user behavioral data, such as, what page do they access the most? Does this button ever get clicked? Things like that. There has been discussion about enabling some features like that, but it also includes conversations about buy-in and, how would customers feel about giving this data back to us. So there isn't any plan right now to implement that data. As a UX researcher, I would love to have it, but it's obviously a pretty complicated conversation when we're talking about getting data back from users' clusters, even if it's anonymized and not necessarily looking at any private information. So we haven't implemented any classic sort of analytics within OpenShift at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So in the workshop that you're planning on doing on the 28th, is it going to be more Legos and boards and whiteboards and things like that, or are you actually going to do some hands-on watching how people use the console and do troubleshooting in the console?
It's gonna be like a lot of example, like the things that I talked about in the previous slides back. It's gonna be very similar to this. It's gonna be really hands-on. We're not gonna show you any we're not gonna have you guys sit in front of a screen and have you test something. We want you to like the participant to be the be involved in the process of this design thinking. We want them to basically start the discussion about their problems, what they actually have issues with, and then we're going to walk them through a lot of hands-on activities to make sure we are coming up with some sort of solution that might work, but we're not going to be relying on the results per se, but the main goal is just to focus on the activities that you do. So it's going to be a lot of hands-on whiteboarding, drawing, maybe Legos. We haven't thought about Legos, but there were some other fun activities that we had in mind. But yeah, a lot of hands-on and less screen. It's not going to be a usability testing per se. It's going to be more of a discussion, like problem discovery and problem solving through a lot of hands-on activities.
And if I can jump in quick too, that's not to say we also have a lot of opportunities open in that. And of course, anyone that joined this workshop, we would be happy to talk with them more. And we have a lot of more one-on-one kind of, sit down and actually do stuff in the interface type of research that we do. It tends to be, again, more one-on-one because it's hard to keep track of, what everyone's doing when there are just a few people running the workshop and maybe a lot more people attending the workshop. So those opportunities definitely exist, even if they're not taking place in the workshop.
So I have another question, and it's sort of a higher level one is, how do you know when a design works? So, you get good feedback, you get people to, do, their feedback, but, and you're iterating through that. So how do you know, and how do you make that judgment when a feature is working or functionality in your design is working?
Sara, I can talk about some OpenShift examples if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, and I will talk about other stuff. Sure.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to get at this question. I mean, one of them would be through analytics. which kind of tells you if somebody is getting from one page to another, but you lose a lot of context when you look at data like that. You don't know if they don't see the button because the color is not very salient and it just doesn't pop out on the page, or maybe they don't know that that's the way that they need to go. They're not concerned about adding that type of Kubernetes resource. So we do a lot of qualitative testing on a smaller scale where we're looking at a specific perhaps like wizard flow if involves something like that, or how they would maybe add a project. And you can evaluate pretty quickly if there are any major problems in your design by testing just a handful of users. So we do a lot of this sort of tactical level research where we're watching people actually go through the interface and getting qualitative input from them on, why something might not have worked if we observe that they didn't complete something that is kind of a major task in the interface. And at times we've also done larger scale benchmarking research where we look at it more quantitatively, where we had over 30 users across 2 different versions of OpenShift, and we kind of compared one set to the other to see how long it took them to complete certain tasks and how effective they were at completing them at all and how satisfied they felt using them, and compared those metrics. And I recently did a readout of some of those findings at DevConf, and I'm happy to share that link out for people that might want to dig into that information a little bit more.
Yeah, as Carl said, I think our major metric to understand whether or not a feature is working is to observe their behavior, like in context. So yeah, the analytics will tell a lot about what's happening, what people are doing in our application, but it won't tell us why. So that's the idea. So we want to know if something is not happening, if it's not something working, we want to understand why, like what's the reason for that. So that's the best I think approach that we have. Like, just watch the users, use your application, observe them, observe the behavior, and that's how we will know whether or not this feature is working. And that's the best metric that we have, like having real behavior data in the context, just to make sure that the feature that we design, or this design that we have, is working for the user. And while you're observing the users, like you will be surprised that you will learn so much about their expectations and about their behavior. And that's honestly is really a very eye-opening experience for anyone involved in that process. And what we usually do is that if we have these sessions running, like say we have some usability testing running, we'll definitely invite the product team, the design team to watch and observe these sessions. So because even if we report, like say 10 pages of like data to them, unless they see it in person, it's not going to be as impactful. So what we do, whenever is any sessions like usability testing is going on, we broadcast those sessions so everyone can see, like mainly design teams that can see the experience from their own side, and just feel the experience for themselves. So yeah, I think observation and watching the behavior of the users is what will tell us if this design is working or not.
Great.
I hope that answered that question.
I think it did. I think that was a very good way to do it. Those of us who are developers, and we tend to make fixes and then deploy it, see if it works, and get feedback there. But I think we've always said where the observation is, that's really how you get people to understand how people are actually using the software. So I think that's a great point. So this event that you are hosting in October, you're looking for 20 to 25 people who are willing to go through some of this group hands-on activities. And so if people are interested in participating in that, we will add into the slide before the actual URL, and I'll get you to send me your slide deck too, and we'll add that in, and we'll post that on the mailing list, as well as link it into the landing page for the OpenShift Commons gathering that's happening in San Francisco on the 28th, and we hope you'll join us. And then we hope that Sara and Carl, that you'll come back and talk to us a little bit more about what you found out, because I think that would be interesting too, is to hear a little bit about what the feedback was and how the session went.
Yeah, we would love to. Yes, we will definitely be sharing anything that we learn in this workshop, and it's going to be really exciting. I'm sure it's going to be really fun for people who's going to participate, and most probably we will learn so much about these processes.
Yeah, and we're doing it in the morning, so if you want to come and join us for the rest of the afternoon at the OpenShift Commons gathering itself, you're welcome and invited to do so. So because we're looking, we're looking really for some folks who will volunteer some of their time or bring the people who are from their companies that are interested in this topic and users to help us keep innovating on the UX for OpenShift and related integrated pieces. So.